feel quite fortunate in a way that we're not doing a specific topic in this episode, because things have opened up so much more. We talked about in the last episode and being able to experience things. I got to do something actually last night that I've not done in way before lockdown. I went out with people and did something.
Out?
No, not out. If anything, out in.
I
went to an escape room.
Nice.
So it's called Cryptic Escape Rooms in Manchester. It's actually in Ashton, but yeah. It's really good. It's brand new. I think they've got another one somewhere, or they're partnered with another escape room somewhere else. But it's brand new. I've done them before. Really, really enjoy them. And the one that we did last night was a Stranger Things inspired one.
Nice.
So again, it was like, I like escape rooms anyway.
Yeah.
But with the Stranger Things one, I was like, I am in for this.
Yeah.
Anyone who's never been to an escape room, I think we can all kind of assume what the idea is, that you're locked in.
Yeah.
They make it very clear. I think there must be some sort of legal thing of like, yeah, you're locked in. Big wink. You see that massive key next to the door? That's how you can get out. But with the narrative, imagine that key isn't there.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where I've talked about it with mates before, and we've definitely spoke about it. An escape room, in its most basic sort of starting point, is you decide your own level of enjoyment when it comes to something like that. Yeah. If you go in there wanting to be a dickhead and not liking it, like, of course I'm not in Stranger Things. Of course we're not in America. Of course we're not going in the Upside Down. But just put all that on the hook on the back of the door for a fucking second and enjoy the thing that you're there to do.
The stranger thing.
The stranger thing. Like you decide your own level of enjoyment. Yeah. You decide your own level of involvement, and you just got to get on with it. And if you're the sort of person who almost has to take themselves too seriously all the time, it might be very difficult for you to enjoy something like an escape room. But me, any opportunity I've got to be like, oh, you know what, I enjoy massive parts of my life, but at any point if I get to like put that on a the back burner for a minute and just do something different. It's the same reason why I enjoy sort of the computer games that I enjoy. And again, it's why I like, in a way, working with people in co-op rather than against people in games. So we're stuck in this room for an hour. We've got to find missing people. There's like Barb from season 1 of Stranger Things, Will Myers. We've got to find Will, and all the clues. So the first one is you'd have fucking loved this. So the first one is character sheets from D&D.
Nice. Okay.
So the one is like we were reading it, and it was like, oh yeah, you've got to find the person who's got the lowest level first. Yeah. So your character level 11's in it, and then she's like level 50 straight away. So you got to find the lowest level character, their lowest skill, and at the end it just had this throwaway line of going, modifiers are active or modifiers count or something like that. And like the people that I was there with were like, what does that mean? I was like, oh. Unfortunately or fortunately, I know what that means.
Step aside, non-nerds. I've got this.
Move this. And then like there's a series of like dices or dies, whatever you want to call them or whatever.
Dice,
and then, dice. Different types of locks, like four number combinations, 5 number combination, directional locks on it and stuff. There's a black light that comes into it later on. You open a cupboard, a really tiny little cupboard. You open it thinking there's going to be a clue in it. Nope, it's actually a passageway into another room and all sorts.
Heavy spoilers, by the way. Anyone who wants to do this escape room.
But I mean, this is the thing. They periodically change them.
Yeah.
So it's not like you keep doing the same experience.
Yeah, you could go back. You could ask of you when do you change stuff and go back.
The actual company that we went with, I spoke about a minute ago. They have already 3 escape rooms that you can do. They have a Hill House Haunting and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, I think it is. It's written in a weird font, but I think it's Eye. Yeah, Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Yeah, so I think they're all loosely based on some sort of TV or film property. And my other half has asked me to go to a Harry Potter one, and I'm well up for it because it's an escape room. It's like, that's fine, you know. If anything, when you get to my skill level on an escape room, I need the extra extra difficulty of a property I don't know the ins and the outs of. But having done the Stranger Things ones, it's if you've not watched the TV series, you're not gonna. You might you'll see a missing persons poster of Barb, but if you don't know who Barb is, it's just a missing person.
Yeah.
But you don't need to know anything about Barb. Everything you need to know is in that escape room at that moment. You don't need to have seen all the seasons of Stranger Things, or you don't need to, again, like the D&D stuff. You don't need to be an expert player or consistently play or have a team that you play with all the time in D&D, because actually you could strip D&D out of it. It's a maths question. But as somebody who plays D&D, it's that little extra layer that I got that I found quite humorous.
Yeah.
And the way that they'd organised it, all the character sheets had the characters in the corner, and it was it was like Mike, 11, Dustin, all of them like in wizards outfits or in knights outfits, like, you know, hand drawn pictures, and it was cool. But again, it's those layers. So I now would do a Harry Potter one, because as much as I might miss, you know, every other reference, I think I'd still enjoy it and still be able to contribute to the escape room.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it'd be interesting to do that with like the one person who we might know who hasn't watched Stranger Things, or whatever version.
Whatever the property is.
I think that'd be. Imagine if that was your first experience of it. How would that affect when you then watch the show and you're like, oh, the things, that was the thing, and then there's the thing, the Stranger thing, twice in a pod.
The only negative that I experienced from it is that because of the situation that we're all in, it's you had to wear your masks inside.
Yeah,
that's the only negative. But in all honesty, personally, everyone's different. It wasn't a big enough of a negative for me.
Yeah, it didn't take you out of it necessarily.
No, it really didn't take you out. I mean, if it was a super physical thing, like running around, or, you know, you go into like, you know, I'm trying to think of something, like if you're having to play a football game wearing a mask, like, I can understand that being like, this is really ruining it for me. I can't fucking breathe here. But in that environment, we walked in and we said, like, they're all wearing masks when we got there, the organisers of it. We said, do we need to wear the masks inside? And they were like, yeah, we prefer it. And it's like, when you first walk in, you're very aware you're wearing it. But I think, again, because you decide your own level of involvement, I'm remembering what we did, and I don't remember being claustrophobic or anything like that. I just remember it was just a great experience. So personally, it didn't take anything away from it.
And I think the person who, and this isn't a criticism, the person who does struggle with a mask, or who doesn't want to wear a mask because they, like you say, maybe they're claustrophobic or maybe they're a bit panicky, outside of COVID risk, etc. aside, I think that sort of person would be out of it anyway in an escape room. I think it'd be a little bit too much, because I seem to remember doing an escape room a couple of years ago, or I don't even think it ended up happening, but I think there was one proposed in a group, and there was a couple of people in our group who were a bit, one of them particularly is quite claustrophobic, and I don't know if it's claustrophobic, but just don't like the idea of being in a locked room. And I was basically saying, to be honest, I don't think they usually actually lock the room, because, like you say, legally, contractually, maybe they can't, or there'll be a very obvious thing to get help to speak or press to open, whatever it happens to be. But yeah, I think the person who would struggle with a mask on anyway, I don't think the escape room's probably their cup of tea anyway. Yeah. But I definitely agree with the notion.
We had radio. They had a radio outside, and we had the radio with us. And I've been to some before where there's like a TV in the room. Yeah. And they'll put, you know, clues up there if you're struggling, or there'll be certain like triggers that you need to watch something. And if you're supposed to be set in like the 80s, you know, a flat screen TV on the wall wouldn't actually make sense, but a radio kind of makes a little bit more sense. But as well, that radio is your direct contact to, we're in trouble, not in the game.
Yeah.
Like one of our party needs help, and they're outside. You've got a direct link to them, so there is that level of, safety where they can just open the door. They're in. They're not like having to do a 4-digit combination on the outside, like to get into you. Like,
you've got to give them clues for them to get back into the escape room.
Yeah. It's all right, mate. She's passed out now. Like, what are you doing?
I like the thought of designing an escape room, an enter room that you've got to try and get into the room and escape it.
I love escape rooms. I think I've played about 4 or 5 of them now. I've done a couple up in Scotland, and I've done one in the centre of town. Actually, I did that just with my other half.
Yeah.
I was like, people say that walking around IKEA, if you can come out of there and not have an argument with your other half, that's like
sign of a good relationship.
Yeah. And I was like, I think an escape room is like the next stage of that.
That's a test. Yeah.
Yeah, and we did it, and we actually we escaped in
nice.
Like when it was just like me and her, and that was. I didn't walk out going, "Oh, what a great relationship that we did that." It was a really great experience, and then when you look back, you go, "Oh, actually, there's probably quite a lot to be said about that. That we made a decent enough team that we managed to,
yeah,
if you need to actually situation."
Yeah, if you need to actually escape a room at some point, at least you're
she's had we've had our metal tested together, and we beat the hour.
Do you know what I think is interesting about escape rooms? It's one of those group activities. You see a different side to people you know.
Yes.
It could be the closest friends, and there'll be some people you really sleep on how smart they actually are. Where they'll go, "Oh, it's a logic puzzle. You just do this or this," and you go, "It took me 10 minutes to get to this point."
Yeah.
And you just 30 seconds. You've straight.
Or
through.
the other way, you see people's characteristics where you go, "Oh, I didn't realise they had such a leadership sort of." Angle. I was in an escape room, this is years ago, and there was a couple of false clues in it. So we're doing this one and we're spelling this thing out, and we're finding the clue, seeing what it translates to. That's a letter, and we're going along, and it's all right. I've got an R, brilliant. Okay, what's the next one? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's an E, and that's a D, so red, and we started spelling out red herring, and before we got to the end of it, we're like, "No, we got to move on, leave it."
Yeah.
And even though we'd spelt pretty much the whole of red herring, we had one mate who was just like, "No, we've got to get to the end of this. Look, come, we've got to spell the whole thing out." It's like, you're literally spelling out red herring, and he just couldn't see it. He couldn't see it. Like, he'd focused on the task too much to step back and see the bigger picture of like, mate, they've mugged you off. Let's go.
You disowned him since then.
Yeah, we don't talk.
He's not good in a crisis.
No, he's not good in a crisis. My life is just crisis central. It's not. It's pretty laid back, my life. But yeah, and I think it's weird because we were with people who'd never done an escape room before, and they were buzzing off it, going, didn't know what to expect. I had one friend who was slight hesitant about doing it, but then they ended up having like a great time, to the point where something's good. It's like when you have a meal and the second there's leftovers and someone gets up to go get a leftovers, like they don't need to tell you that they enjoyed it. They've shown you.
Yeah.
And we came out of the escape room talking about, when we go next time, and it's like, well, it's a hit then, isn't it? Really, if you're already talking about doing it next time. But I think the more you do, because like I said, I've done a few. Because of like an experience like, that was a red herring, that clue.
Yeah.
Or you've gone into... I've done escape rooms where it was just one room. But then I've done other escape rooms where it was multiple rooms.
Yeah.
And I think the more you do, the more knowledge you've got, obviously. But then your own knowledge of it can kind of change your interpretation of what's going on. So every clue could, in your mind, go, this could be a red herring because I've been in a situation where it was. Or we think we're in one room, but it could be multiple rooms. But then you kind of almost fake yourself out, because actually it is only one room and none of them are red herrings. So it brings different dynamics the more you play of them. And I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I can just go in and go, right, I got the first clue, I've smashed it out, I know what's going on here.
Yeah, definitely. I've done one which was multiple rooms, which we didn't know, which was a really...
the one that me and my missus did was...
moment. You go through... It's similar to what you're saying about opening a cupboard and you can go through. It's that kind of setup. And then it was just in another room with a computer, and it was like,
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we'd escaped.
Mate,
and when we did that, by the way, there was a third room.
Oh, brilliant! We were in one. This is one in Scotland actually, and we did it. There was 4 of us, and we were on a stag do, and so not necessarily in the best mental
lads.
Because that's what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You all meet up. You go to an escape room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we weren't in the best mind place, or we weren't in the best physical shape at that point. Got there after half an hour. Opened the door of the room. We were like, half an hour, lads. They said it was going to be an hour. We've absolutely fucking smashed this. Nah, second room. But I mean, again, that's just a thing. So you never know what's gonna kind of happen with them. So that's what I've done very recently, as in last night.
No,
I've got something else that kind of ties into it, but it's whether or not you want to chat about what you've been up to or move on to that.
Yeah, well, I think we've bought. It's a very interactive episode in stuff that we've played, because I think we've both got a computer game to bring up.
Yeah.
So if you want to jump in with yours first,
it kind of links to escape rooms. So if you wouldn't mind, Superliminal, which I kind of is a bit of a play on Subliminal and Superman. I don't know. It's quite an old game now. So basically, it is 2019 puzzle video game released by Pillow Castle. I've never heard of that company.
No,
but they
quite a
they
small
did it.
studio, I assume.
Yeah, well, it was on Steam, so it's it's not like your flat like on the shelf sort of game. It's played in first person perspective and incorporates gameplay elements around optical illusion and force perspective. I've just read that off the wiki. There's loads more on it, but it's one of those games that I've seen advertised. I think I might have seen it with you when we've been like scrolling like through stuff. And it's very, very similar to an escape room. You're literally locked in a room and you've got to figure your way out. But unlike an escape room in real life, you're in a computer game and it does that brilliant thing of going, oh, things look like the things that you know, but we're going to twist it all a little bit. So you're in a room, for instance, and you can't find a way out. But there's a small little doll's house on a table. You pick that doll's house up and move it so that from the camera angle, it's massive because it's right in front of you. But it also could be massive if it was not in front of you and it was in the other side of the room, but huge. And the minute you drop it, it changes the shape of it if you put it in the right angle, so that rather than looking like it's right in front of you, it's further away. And basically the way out would be through the doll's house, because now you've made it big enough for you to walk through.
Right, okay.
And then there'll be another one where you can't find a way out, and I was stuck in a few of them for ages, until you realise that, the photograph on the wall can come off and then you can step into the photograph.
Nice, yeah.
Or you open a door and on the other side, it's not a door that's been opened, it's a loft conversion. So rather than walking through, you fall through. And it really messes with like that sort of stuff. There's one particular level in it and I just could not figure it out at all. I'm not going to spoil it because it's a particularly good episode, particularly good room.
Yeah.
And the reason why I fell foul in that room is because I was trying to pick up and move things that you do in the real world. So I wasn't thinking abstract enough and wasn't thinking outside of,
what you could do or what is possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For instance, like, without giving it away, and this is definitely not giving it away, if there's a photograph of a key, you need to start thinking, can I pick the key up out of the photograph rather than it being a photograph and use that key? Yeah. So you kind of got to think, like I said, a little bit more abstract with it. But I was playing it, Lou, and I was just sat there going, this is one of the best games I've ever played. It's not about shooting. I mean, you don't even see what your character looks like. There's no character build in it. There's basically a little bit of a story of like you going to a... what do they call those dreams where you
lucid dream?
Yes, so you go to a lucid dream company, and you can hear the voiceover talking. It's kind of similar to Portal 2 in that respect, and then you go off piste essentially in this therapeutic lucid dream state that you're in. There is a story, but it's loose enough that you feel like there's a a beginning and I've got to get to an end of something.
Yeah.
But it's all about your experience and what can you see around you. And sometimes there's multiple ways of doing something. And actually, if you play, because you can play everything again, the levels again, pick and choose whenever you want, which ones you want to do. You find out that something that took you sort of 45 minutes one time, it's like, oh my god, it's that.
Yeah,
I've done it in a second. There's loads of trophies and stuff that are hidden in it, and every level has almost like 5 or 6 extra things that you need to do, but it doesn't tell you what things you need to do or not do in it.
Yeah.
So you can complete the whole game, but actually you've probably hit about 20% of it.
Nice.
So it's got a lot of replayability about it.
Yeah.
It's got the comedy voiceovers of a sort of Fable meets Portal 2. So it's got that very British dry humour where it kind of takes the piss a little bit.
Yeah.
Almost Monty Python-esque in its sort of approach.
Quite meta.
But I would love us to play a couple of levels on it and probably put it on the channel of something that's just kind of talking through.
Yeah, that'd be
through
good.
Doing it. But it's I don't normally sing the praises of a game and say to people go and get it. But if you can get hold of this game, seriously, get it, because it's not really like anything else. The closest I can say to it is, like I said, it's like Portal 2, but it's not in the gameplay or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's problem solving, but on a very, very different level, and it looks really cool as well.
Yeah.
Like, it looks
I've played some like independently created versions of that type of stuff on Dreams on PlayStation, where you can make your own levels and make your own games. And there's some that are very amateurish, and there's some where you're like, wow, you could package this and sell it as its own game. It's really good.
This game, yeah, definitely.
And it's I do remember one or two, because you'll have the developer of the game, when I was streaming on Twitch on my channel, would recommend, I've got a thing, will you play this and stream it? And I do remember one or two of them, I think, referenced Superliminal as a inspiration, or or they'd played that, or they'd played something like it and thought, can I make something like that? Because I imagine the actual code in the building of the game must be quite interesting for physically changing the environment based on movements, angles, and that, like you say, force perspective.
I convinced myself a couple of times that the game had loaded incorrectly and not loaded key components in for me, because I was like, how is this is impossible. And it does that brilliant fake out of, you see this later in the game, you kind of go, I kind of understand what's going on here. I've played enough of the levels to get the basic makeup of the game.
And
you walk into a room and go, well, I know I need to get there. I can see I've got to use that, but there's a massive thing in the way. You're trying to get object 1 past the obstacle to get it to the end of the game or the end of the level. And you're trying to do it, and you make it too small, you make it too big, you're losing it, blah, 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 blah. And you've set yourself this challenge to do. And then when you take a step back and realise it, there's a really, really simple answer right at the beginning, if you'd only not been so cocky. Because you're just running the room and go, I know what's going on, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no. If you'd have walked into the room the same way you did the first one, you'd have gone, there we go. Done. If anything, you're almost even thinking too much outside the box.
Yeah. Is it Ready Player One, where one of the races, the only way to win it, you've got to go backwards? And I think to mainstream audiences that was like, whoa. And then I think people who are really heavy into games are like, oh yeah, that's the thing that's known about, like secret levels or hidden things and that sort of stuff. But it's like you say, that idea of trying to play through a whole level and going, if I just turned round when I started the level, there was a door there. Or there was a button, or something that it's like, it was literally behind me.
Yeah, and there's loads of that. So it's almost very similar to an escape room, is that they set things up in order to fool you, so that you think, just when you think I've got a grip, stand back, guys. I've got a grip on this. I know what's going on. That's when they pull the rug out from underneath you, and it was just brilliant. I was just I was playing it, just going. It's engaging, and it takes mental. I was going to say stress then, but that's not what I meant at all. Like, you've got to be engaged and you've got to be thinking about and you're problem solving. But it's just so different from like the other games that I'm playing. And we spoke about this before, how I don't play, 10, 12 games all at once. I normally like disappear down one game and just like consistently play.
Just go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Digitally.
Said the name, didn't I? But I was just playing it going, this is so different from anything else that I've played. This is just beautiful, and the music in it is really soothing, and but I definitely thought that stuff hadn't loaded, and then turned round, and like you said, if I just turned round, it's right there.
I love it.
But it's really cool.
I'm definitely up for playing this, and was getting some stuff up there soon.
I think it was the same time that we talked about the Stanley Parable as well, which we've had a bit of a play on before, haven't we? And it's all that sort of similar sort of, not similar as in you play one, you could have played them all, but that similar sort of feel of like
it's logic and problem solving, isn't it? Yeah,
like an escape room. You go in there and you don't know what to do first, so you've just got to start looking through drawers. You've got to start clicking on things, just trying until you get that first thread of the jumper before you can start pulling it all apart. And it started making me think about because it's like it's forced perspective and optical illusions, but it's like almost an augmented reality. And people go, playing GTA like with the VR on is amazing, and it's like, I get it, because you can't do the things in GTA that you can do in the real world. But GTA, you are driving cars. You drive cars in the real world. You can walk around in the real world and stuff like that. But I think something like this or the Stanley Parable, that in VR would be a whole other level. Like walking through a door and suddenly you're actually coming out of the ground instead. Like that feeling.
I can imagine a bit of motion sickness coming.
I mean, maybe they'd have to tailor it specifically for VR, but that whole idea of going, those things that physics bind us in the real world, that's not a contributing factor in this game.
Yeah. Is it just PC? Is it on console? You said you got it through Steam?
But I played it on PS4.
All right, okay, nice. Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, I bought it through just like on PlayStation. Like I didn't have to download it and port it over or anything like that. But it's a really, really good game. And I think when I bought it, I think there might have been a sale on it at the moment. I don't know if it's on right now, but there was at the time. But even full price, they're normally quite cheap. Those games.
Yeah, they're not that expensive. The puzzle ones. I've been going down the rabbit hole in the digital form again, with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, so the remastered original trilogy.
I've got a couple of questions for you about it, but go on. I mean,
for me, what's been exciting is I forgot just how big and how much world building there was from the first game onwards. Right. In my mind, for some reason, the first one was quite small and fairly linear.
Okay. And
then in the second one, some of the decisions mattered, and then the decisions really affected the story. And I think by the third one, the big criticism was at the very end, you can't hugely change the outcome. A lot of the decision goes, but
I
started playing the first game thinking I'll just smash through it quite quick. I don't know how many hours I've put into it, but I've barely scratched the main story. I've got to the point where I'm out exploring the universe and I've got my own ship and I know what the main mission is, what the objective of the story is. And I won't go into spoilers just in case people haven't played it or they've not done a lot of the side quests and things, but I've done way more of the side quests. I've done way more of... You'll have a conversation with a character who is a seemingly randomly character, and then your codex will update and you go there and it says like, this person mentioned a strange reading on this planet. So you've got to find the system, then you've got to find the cluster of planets in the system, and then you've got to find the planet in there, and then you end up doing a whole side mission where you'll unlock really cool space armor, or you'll meet a character and it'll give you a decision basically to say, are you going to kill this character? Are you going to, let them go? Are you going to try and arrest them? There's way more choices than I remember, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm fully in the story. I'm fully immersed in it.
The closest I've come to it, and it's not actually a million miles away from it, was Andromeda.
Yeah.
And there's certain times when I was playing Andromeda, and I probably... I probably neglected certain things in my life when I was playing that game. I know it got a lot of stick, but fortunately I started playing that after all the patches came in. I know there was an issue with the eyes, and it was very, very weird. So I probably played the game more closer to what it was supposed to have been originally, but after the patches. But that whole secondary mission or a side quest or whatever rabbit hole that you were talking about, then there was definitely times in that game where I was like, I've got a lot of strands that are going off here, like little missions. I feel like I need to box a few of these off so that I feel like I've got some sort of like complete sort of some of the strands.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that sounds, because you get like the little spec, don't you, of what each one's going to be or what you're looking for. I'll box that one off before I go and do things in my real life. And you get there and you give that person's gone missing, and it's like, now you need to go and investigate these 5 planets to where this person could be, and it's like, it never ends. It never ends. But I suppose that's the idea, isn't it? That how many times in the real world do you have a conversation with someone and you're conscious that that's the last interaction with that person ever? And that is the beauty of it. One of the questions that I did have for you is this remaster meant to be for the fans who enjoyed the original game, or for someone who was late to the party like me? Is this will I enjoy this version of the game? Yeah,
definitely, because it is literally a all graphically it's I think the first one at least, it's like a full reskin pretty much, lots of re-rendering, and it includes all of the DLC. So if you start to like the game, you can go as deep into the rabbit hole as you want with each one. Everything else is included as well. So
if you start looking at like content and stuff like that, if you include like DLC and stuff like that, it's not just 3 games, is it? It's huge. It's massive.
And it's definitely one forever. I don't think that you'd have to have played the first ones to enjoy it. I think it holds up well enough. It's a recent enough game that it doesn't feel massively dated. There's certain little bits of the mechanics of how it works that some people have criticised. So some of the camera angles, it's third person, but some of the camera angles are really tight and close to the character, and it's a little bit odd. Like, you're used to either being right over the shoulder or a bit further away, and this is kind of
right.
Doesn't fit either. And some of the character animations are a little dated. They're a little clunky.
Okay.
But it's not enough to take you out of it, for me anyway. There's enough good-looking stuff in the world, enough story stuff that you don't... I don't think you notice it massively. There'll be... Some of the characters might walk a little bit weird, but again, you can get that in modern games. There's certain bits in GTA where something won't load properly, or a certain character will walk weird, and you think, well, I'm not returning my purchase over a little thing. It doesn't. That
one tiny thing didn't make sense, so I'm cashing the whole thing in.
Yeah, exactly. And story wise as well, obviously it throws you in the same way it does when you first play the first one. So you might go in a little bit like, oh god, there's so much, I don't know what's happening. But you start playing the story and everything's explained to you. You start to learn, and again, there's so much world building in the codex and journal entries in your menu that if it's stuff you don't know about, there'll be information will be in there if you want to just sit and read it. And then what I tend to do is I'm like, I've just spent 20 minutes just reading stuff in a menu. I'm not even playing the game.
Well, Andromeda, I really should say it's Mass Effect's Andromeda. So it's set in the exact same, I was going to say universe, but it's not. They're in a different part of they're in a different universe, but the same, in the same reality, the same.
Yeah.
So all that sort of codex technology within the story of the game exists in Andromeda. So there's a lot of reading to be done in that, and you don't have to do the reading. However, it's going to make certain things either make way more sense, or you're going to find something or be able to build something that's more beneficial for you. Because I know that happens in Andromeda, like massively, the way you can do research with certain armors or certain guns and things. And then also in Andromeda part of the story, you wake up people out of cryo sleep.
Yeah.
And you can decide to wake up either military people, scientific people, known as scientists, scientific people, or like politicians and leaders and stuff like that, and how that affects. It's one of those things I know it's like I'm just picking people to wake up, but like we've all played games enough to know that is going to come back into the game later on.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you're being attacked, you should have woken up like people who were going to be more defensive, or actually you brokered a deal with another species, but you've got the real shitty end of the stick. Shit, I should have woken up more politicians and stuff like that. But all that information is ready for you if you do the extra bit of reading. Yeah,
and there's something about this game, replaying it, that the with any RPG type game, any adventure game like that, I will tend to pick the soldier class, or whatever even if it's mainly soldier type classes, it'll be the jack of all trades kind of like, this is the infantryman, this is the soldier, the fighter, because a lot of the time with games, you'll find it a bit easier just to fight your way through stuff. But I do want to, when I finish this game, replay it as the tech version of like the magician class with the abilities, because there's so much in the world that I want to try approaching it a little bit differently. The first Mass Effect especially, I think you can basically blast your way through most things. You might not get as many unlocks if you don't upgrade your electronic skills, and if you don't have someone in your team who's a good hacker and that sort of stuff, but for the most part, at least for the main story, you can pretty much shoot your way through it. But there's so much side quest stuff where I'm like, oh, this would be interesting playing this as like a tech character, and ultimately you can do that and have one of your crew as the soldier.
So you've got that ability.
You've got in your team someone can shoot away most of the hostiles anyway. It's not as though you're going to really struggle.
We spoke about this, and it seems very similar to the conversation we've had about like D&D character builds.
Yeah.
And I always, again, like you, when it comes to computer games, I pick the soldier. It's not because it suits me best for that. I just think that sometimes with my life, when it comes to time, it's either feast or famine. And maybe I don't have the time to learn how to do this other character. And if I've not had time to play it in ages, it's going to be easier for me to jump on and be the jack of all trades and to go, oh, where was I up to with this character? I can't even remember any of their abilities. And then you end up playing like, a magic wielder in D&D, but you've forgotten all the spells and even how it works. So you start just hacking and slashing, and it's like you'll get so far, but that's not your skill set. That's like not even your secondary ability. It's so far down the line that you're not even scratching. You're going to get to a point where you're just completely outclassed by everything around you. So I tend to, we spoke about this before, when we play D&D, I make sure that I'm a sniper character, because I know that I'm a bit too gung-ho in life sometimes anyway, and I just jump into the mix of it and start like kicking about, and it's like, you've not got those skills in real life. Why do you think you've got them in a game where you're surrounded by people who know a lot more about it than you do? So I tend to try and put myself in a character who his skill set is best out of the main fight and stuff. So I need to be a character like in D&D that's kind of more out of it. And to just force myself not to do that thing in the back of my mind of like, you're not going to be very skilled to be able to do the jumping into the middle of it, so stay back. But maybe with Mass Effect, because I know it's 3 games, I still will probably go with the soldier, the infantryman, just because it's like you can get involved quicker. You can get moving along easier.
And when you first set up the game, you can create a character and you can change your name, you can change the physical model. What I've done with this is I've also just picked him as Sam Shepard as the main character, because it's just like, I'll just go whatever his backstory is, and in theory the main story will just read better because it's written with that in mind. But you can change your backstory and it'll affect your abilities and your classes, your levels and that sort of stuff. So it is similar to escape rooms. You get out of it as much as you put in. You can just pick the base stuff, play the main story, and you'll go, well, that was a fun game in a cool world. Or if you want to get more out of it, I know people who've literally completed it 10 times with different classes, and sometimes they've only picked like the paragon of virtue, the good, the hero stuff, and then sometimes they pick like the evil choices. Sometimes they've always tried to go neutral and tried to never pick, if there's kill someone, set them free, or just leave the situation. They might always try to go for the leave one and try and sit on the fence all the time.
Yeah. What I do like about the Mass Effects games, including Andromeda in this, is that there are certain storylines that if you do them, sometimes it's like if you do them in a particular order, that's now cut off to you. You can't ever go down that route because you either know something that would affect your decisions on that, or you know something that therefore you would never meet that character, or there's like 12 steps in a side quest. You make a decision 4 steps in, and you've ended that story now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, like you've glitched the game or anything. It's like, no, as your character, that is the story, and that's how far that story went.
Yeah.
So you can go back in and I think the games are definitely set up that you can't do everything in every playthrough. You have
definitely.
To go back in and
especially
experience it.
Yeah, especially the first couple of those original trilogy. There's quite a lot of side quests where I for example have just done a mission where I chose to save hostages and let a terrorist leader go, and it's heavily foreshadowing that because I've done that, I'm sure he'll turn up again at some point and kick off.
Yeah,
and I'll have to deal with it.
Is he going to come? Is he going to give you an out later on
at some point? Yeah, exactly.
And you never know. Yeah, this. I mean, it's the same setup in Andromeda, and I keep bringing up Andromeda because it's my only connection to the Mass Effects world. But because I'm not on the fence. I definitely do want to play it, but I've still got Final Fantasy VII remake to play. And I know they've done certain things in that where you're meeting of Sephiroth, the pacing of the story in it is different. You get Cloud and Sephiroth meeting each other properly earlier on.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a remake though as well, isn't it? Not just like
a
remaster.
It's not,
that's the difference. Like the story's different. I know that speaking to someone who's played the original game, this is possibly, he hadn't finished it at the time, but he's saying it alluded it's maybe a spin-off alternate universe, and characters are aware of characters from the original, and there's like weird stuff which I've never checked in again because I've never played the original really, so I could say to him, oh, was it what you thought? And he could go, yeah, it's this thing, and I'll go, sounds good.
I love the original Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. We talked about this before. I love the character design and everything, and I think when they were talking about the remake of it, what I wanted from it, my hopes for the remake was strip the game out build that you've done. The initial idea of what you wanted to do with Final Fantasy VII back then, fast forward to now, how would you have built that game based on those thoughts going, with what's around you? And I kind of feel like that's, from what I've seen of it and what I've read into, that's kind of what's actually happened. Like they've taken modern day pacing and things like, why didn't he meet Sephiroth earlier? Like, he's the big baddie. Why isn't that interaction done? Maybe not mistakes, but missteps they've been able to remedy in the new version. But it's definitely on my list.
Yeah, get it on there. There will. I'll probably revisit the topic when I've got into the second and third games.
Every time you cross between the next the game, we'll have a bit of a chat and a catch up where you're thinking.
I am a little bit nervous about I don't think I ever actually finished the third one, and I'm worried about how frustrating it will be, especially because the way I'm playing it now, I'm doing everything, so I'm so bought into this world. So if the finale,
they have changed the finale, though, haven't they? They have gone back and done things.
I don't know. As far as I'm aware, it's mostly just a remaster graphically.
Oh no! I mean, when the original ending happened and people really hated it, they did go back and alter certain things as a fan thing. So I'm assuming you'll get the best version,
possibly
version. How different that is from the original ending, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm loving it. I'd say it's arguably one of the best sci-fi games out there with a world building element. It really is. Like, there's just so much to it, and but it also just feels so real. Even the choices of how you navigate the different galaxies in the system, like you'll go to your universe map and then you'll go to different galaxies, different clusters, and you literally go in and out of different places, and it just feels very believable while also being a very silly, fun sci-fi adventure.
The one thing that I wish there was in it was the ability to fly a ship yourself. You're very much the person in charge, telling people to do things, and then that the pilot then flies you there. You have it's almost like an armored tank car.
Like the rover that you go around to planets with.
And you personally drive that, but you know, I did want the fact that I'm in space in a spaceship, but I don't get to fly the ship at all myself.
I think that's the same with the original trilogy as well. I mean, I've not done any flying on the first one. I don't think you do, but it feels like a conscious decision. I think the idea being it's all about that ground level exploration and dealing with things and character, and I think there's it. Like you say, there's levels where you're basically only using the rover, which I don't think some people didn't particularly enjoy, but I quite like I find it fun just driving around a new asteroid or a planet and just finding stuff. That's quite fun.
Well, in Andromeda, there's a space. There's a bit where you're on what looks like basically Earth's moon, and you have to drive everywhere in the rover because it's hermetically sealed. You've got life support in it, and there's no atmosphere on it, and the whole rover moves differently, and like the gravity and stuff, and then you go to like the pods and you drive in and you get out and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed the vastly different atmospheres and I don't know, planetary systems that you go to, and like you've got to wear respirators in one and stuff like that. And again, in Mass Effect, you're Commander Shepard. Well, Commander Shepard doesn't pilot a ship. The pilot does that. So why would you suddenly get in a ship and go, oh, right, you're now in control of another character? It's like, no. In this story, you are this one character.
Yeah, exactly.
And you will play as that character, and that character doesn't fly a ship.
I did buy as well. One final thing, I ordered a new edition of the Art of Mass Effect of the trilogy.
Oh, cool!
That got released. So, I don't spend enough time sitting in the menus reading the codexes. I thought, let's get a book that I can sit and read as well.
Just loves a bit of reading, this lad. Can't get enough.
Just got to keep the pretentious points going. That's all it is. I say pretentious points. It's essentially a picture book, but yeah. Anyway. On that note, is there anything else you want to add, Charlie?
Yeah, guys, remember, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Bye.
Scientific people.